I threw a conniption.
Good evening. I'll call this meeting to order at 6:01. Annandale Public Schools commit to educate, inspire, and support all students. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Statement of commitment.
The board conducts its meetings based on a planned written agenda prepared by the superintendent in consultation with the board president and/or vice president and in accordance with the board bylaws and state law.
Thank you. Our public participation process. Members of the audience are welcome to make comments at the time designated on the agenda. Please register at the sign-up sheet by the door when you walk in. Limit your comments to 3 minutes when your name is called. Out of respect for all individuals, please refrain from personal criticisms in an open forum. And for more information, you can take a look at policy 167.3. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Anna, second by Kevin. All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say the same. Motion to approve the agenda carries. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Anna, support by Kevin. All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say the same. The agenda is approved as presented. All right, we are already at public comments. Good to go.
Yep.
Troy Lampin.
Good evening. I just thought it would be fun and a good thing to highlight some of the nice things happening around the district and fun things going on. This Saturday, the PTO is doing a fundraiser event with the girls and guys GVSU basketball teams at their field house. I plan on going. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Even if my kids don't watch the games, they'll run around and burn up a bunch of energy. So, and a good portion of that goes back to the PTO. Also, next March 19th is the Elementary Art Festival Showcase at the Evergreen. The PTO is also looking for volunteers to help hang art the week of the 11th. I am volunteering for that. That is personally one of my most favorite volunteer opportunities, to get to see all of that artwork and hang it up for those kids. So if you want to do that, please do. It's a lot of fun. The high school musical is March 7th through 9th, The Wizard of Oz, one of my wife's all-time favorite movies, so you can be guaranteed I will be going to that, maybe twice. It's a great show. We went last year to the play last year, and it was a lot of fun. Those kids put a lot of work into it, and they have a lot of fun doing it. Next month is also Reading Month Challenge. Last year, the PTO raised just over $30,000. If you have a young reader in your household, I highly encourage participation in doing that. It's a lot of fun, and I think it would be really cool if we could beat that number this year. This Saturday, the middle school and high school are having a Science Olympiad tournament. If that's your thing, I highly encourage you to do that. Those kids put a lot of hard work into that, and they really, really, really have a lot of fun doing it. And then last but not least, the bond proposal. I unfortunately have not been able to attend any of the community update meetings. However, I am very much looking forward to hearing tonight about that and all of the great progress that has been made and what is coming forth with that. I'm really excited to hear about that, and I thank all of the people involved, the board and the steering committee that has put in a lot of effort to that. So thank you, and I hope everyone has a wonderful week as well.
Thank you, Troy. Krista Yetzke.
Hi, I just want to say I have been going to the bond meetings, and I appreciate that those have been offered. I've learned a lot. And my one request is that as you begin to formulate the wording that will go on the ballot, and as you start thinking that over this next couple of months, I ask that you use numbers as to what the burden will be on the taxpayer. Because when you just say the taxes won't increase and it will just extend for 10 years, I don't know that people really get the picture of what that burden will be on them. So we used an example at the meeting that the average household is currently paying $2,000 a year in taxes for the school. So if you're extending that 10 years, that's $20,000 that you're asking each family to pay towards this project. And I don't know if that really clicks with people when they hear your taxes won't go up. And that's not taking into account the interest that could be used or earned on that $20,000, and it's also not looking at inflation. So that $20,000 is not, I mean, it's just an example, but I think having that in the wording will click a little bit more with people than just saying your taxes won't go up. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Next up, Rick Houghton.
Hi, Board and Dr. Cooper. My name is Rich Houghton, and I'm the Community Affairs Manager for Consumers Energy. I work out of Norton Shores, but we have this area, and it's live Allendale as a Grand Valley Laker, so daughter's here too, so appreciate being over here today. I just wanted to share a little bit of information. Consumers Energy is on a bold journey in a lot of different ways, but we have about 90,000 miles of distribution throughout the state of Michigan, over about 2 million customers. And we're investing heavily in our distribution system to try to reduce the amount of outages that we have, especially during significant storm events, and as well as the duration. So, you know, what we want to do in the next 5 years is, no matter what type of storm we get statewide, we want to reduce that total number out to 100,000 by 2028, and hopefully not have anyone be out of power for more than a day. We know the storms have been really rough the last few years. Some of probably the windiest 4 years on record, frankly, from what meteorologists tell us. So, but that's no excuse for us. We're going to step up and we're going to invest and do a lot of tree trimming. You're going to see our, either it's Trees Inc. or Asplund, or those trees are going to be out in force this year as they have been, trimming the circuits out and really trying to keep that up and replacing the lines and all the infrastructure. And regarding to generation, you may be hearing of some things like, we're going to be shutting Campbell down next year. And we feel really strongly that we're going to be saving our customers a lot of money. Coal's very expensive to run. Comes from out in the state of Wyoming, and it trucks all the way here by train. There are about 300 folks that work out at Campbell, and we're going to take care of them. They're going to have other opportunities to work after May of 25. But we did buy the Covert gas plant. Gas is our new base load fossil fuel.
1 minute?
I'm sorry?
Just 1 minute.
Okay, thanks. And we feel it's a lot less expensive to run a natural gas plant than a coal plant, and it's similar power. So Covert's going to backfill Campbell, so we're in really good shape there. Solar is going to really be helpful for us in the summertime when everybody's using the air conditioning. It's kind of like a peaker plant, and it's really, really inexpensive to build solar. So that's how we're trying to right size our system. It's been overbuilt historically. Over the years, we built really big power plants, and we didn't need the power for a lot of the months of the year. Like this time of year, we use very little as a state, but we need a lot in August. So we're trying to right size that to keep our customers' costs down. We're trying to be #1 in the Midwest by 2028. So we want rates to be shining too, because we need economic development to be strong in the state. And I'll end it there. But I gave my card to Dr. Cooper and gave you some information tonight. So just reach out anytime. and good luck with your bonds, and we help with this stuff too. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Ronnie Allen.
Hi, I just had a couple questions kind of running through my head, kind of piggybacking on what Krista had said. I'm wondering, and this may be something that was touched on and I missed it, and I don't know if there's more public airtime. I feel like there's one more meeting in March, public community meeting, but I can't remember. So I wondered if there could be kind of a breakdown for, like, if there was just ballpark around a $50 million bond versus a $70 million or $75 million bond versus a, you know, the higher one, 96 or whatever, for what that would look like tax-wise. Like, so what falls off in 2033, then obviously the size of the bond would affect, I would think, the duration or the amount of the tax dollars. So I personally, as a taxpayer, would love to have a little bit more meat on that, to have a little better understanding. I think I could probably wrap my brain around it. I don't wrap my brain around everything, that's for sure. So anyway, thanks. Oh, I'm looking forward to the play too.
Thank you, Ronnie. Is there anyone else who would like to step to the podium at this time, who didn't have the ability to sign in? Okay. Next on the list, we have our committee reports. We have the ad hoc SEAB.
So we had our meeting in June with our new CAP. I think it went pretty well. Just basic overview of, I think what can be expected. Sorry, thank you. What should be expected from that group. Our parents did have some questions. A couple were around how, I know Dr. Cooper and I spoke about this, but how the question or or how parents were informed to opt in or opt out of the YAS survey. There were multiple parents in our CAB board who said that they did not receive it, and so I think for the next time, we just want to make sure that we clear that up a little bit and make sure that process is followed. They were also concerned that the CAB had no specific trends for Allendale. The board members did explain that we can look at Ottawa County's trends, but they had requested the board to revisit opt-in versus opt-out. We did explain that we would bring that back to the board and they could make that request. It doesn't necessarily mean that we would pick it up, but I did want them to know that the request would be made. We will be meeting again towards the end of June with some of the data from some of the surveys out there, and look at the curriculum and discuss any changes that the CAB would like recommended to the board.
Can I add a little bit? The other thing, they did give us copies of some of the assessments that they use in both middle school and high school for some of the questions on some of the tests. There was talk of potentially adding some different questions to those tests. And so Kim did a nice job explaining that that would have to come kind of before us if there was change in that curriculum, if there was recommendations from that. But we do have those for review. And also, I think we have multiple members of the CAB committee that are going to be requesting the curriculum to review prior to June. Beth knows that, but that is open, for anybody to look at too.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the update. Dr. Cooper's report.
Yeah, thank you.
Take it away.
Happy President's Day, right? Let everybody know we have our Young 5 and Kindergarten Information Meeting Night coming up on the 27th, so if If you know anyone who's 4, going to be 5, please tell them that's coming up on the 27th, 6 o'clock in the ECC. I'll just skip over to B, which is the bullying and discipline report. I hope you had a chance to review that. Obviously, I think there's some good news in there. Every one of our buildings reported having fewer discipline in relationship either to first quarter or last year's second quarter. We're cautiously optimistic that that means that our PBIS efforts are working. And we'll continue to track that trend and hope that that continues. But wanted to know if there's anything that stood out in those reports to anyone?
I appreciated hearing that violations for vaping were down.
Yeah.
Have we been doing anything different this last year from the year before, or is it just maybe, you know, the work that we've done and the changes we've made over the past few years are starting to stick a little bit more?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's definitely some educational piece that goes into our PBIS work that they're doing. I think that has a lot to do with it. Yeah, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly why it's down. Like, I haven't spoken with Deputy Ortman, for example, to see what the statistics are across the county to know maybe kids are just getting smarter about the vaping. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm hopeful that it has to do with, it is intentional, like they do intentionally have those conversations.
Good. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. No other questions on that, then I am going to switch over to the bond update. And you can see here, maybe if my computer is really not collaborating. Okay, that might do it. This is the PowerPoint that we most recently used last week. Some of our members in the audience saw. It has not been updated since then, but we did have a steering committee meeting right after we had the community meeting, and we got a lot of great feedback. There are some things that are going to be sort of reimagined. However, I think the broad strokes, like the big ideas, will be very similar. You know, so as we go through this, I'll kind of point some of those out for you. So there is not another community meeting scheduled. There is another steering committee meeting scheduled next Monday, where we'll really try to make some of those hard decisions. And then on March 11th, the board will have a chance to act on the proposal. But I'm going to go through this, and just if you have any questions, let me know as we go through. First up, just to share with you who's the team that's helping us through this. I see Matt Miller is in the back. Matt is with Triangle, and he is going to do a lot of work with us on this. Jamie up in the top right has done a great job of giving us cost estimates, and Bethany has helped put some information together. Eduardo is the main architect from TMP in the bottom left, and they're doing a lot of great work with us, so appreciate all their support. So what's the steering committee been doing? Well, it's their job to critically interpret the information that's given and try to bring a consensus to a strategic plan for upgrading our facilities. So the way this started out is I had meetings with different stakeholders. We sent information out. Every idea I was given got put on the plan. So if someone suggested it, it was included. There are some things included in there that you would look at and go, soccer nets, those are $20,000. Why is this a bond item? Well, it's a bond item because I didn't hear about it until they proposed it, and I didn't want to shut down anybody's ideas. And so the job of the steering committee is to look at that list and say, okay, here's the things that we are prioritizing. Here's some other things we understand why they should be done through the bond. And here's some other things that we don't want to lose sight of, but we should find another way to get these things done. And then what will happen, like I said, after our steering committee meeting next Monday, we'll have hopefully a couple of our steering committee members step up, and they will take the lead on presenting to the board on the 11th for final approval. Then on March 26th, we go before Treasury to present our proposal and ask to be able to put the proposal out there, put it on the ballot, and they may or may not ask for some tweaks from there. And these are just some shots of the steering committee hard at work. I didn't have anybody sign a non-disclosure, so hopefully they don't mind me sharing their photos publicly. So what are we talking about? So here's some of the biggest ideas that came up. And is it okay if I stand up? Might be easier if I could point at some stuff, or it might be hard to hear me.
I think you're fine.
Hey, Garth,
Yeah.
if I may, go back to that last slide.
Well, that's just blank.
Where are those, I see a lot of people are kind of segregated there. What's the process there of the pictures and everybody at the
Oh.
tables? Maybe you could explain that?
Sure, absolutely. So what we did, and we did this for 2 meetings in a row, is we broke people into small groups, and we had them discussing what they felt their priorities were, what the big items were, ideas, things like that. In this particular meeting, I think this was the one where all the items were listed, and they were given to them by category. So it might say high school renovations, and it would have 12 things on there, and it would have the cost for each one of those things on there. And then in their small committee, they would decide yes on this or no on this. And then, we tried to make sure that at the 2 meetings, they didn't sit with the same people, so they had a chance to share their ideas with different groups. And then, that's where Bethany from Triangle took the feedback from the small committees, and what she sent me over the weekend was all the items that so we had 3 groups working, and all 3 groups said yes to these items. And then 2 of the 3 said yes to this, 1 of the 3 said yes to this, and none of the groups said yes to this. So the none of the groups, that's out. We're not gonna discuss that anymore. We'll keep it to the side, see if it's things we wanna do internally. And so that's what the work they were doing right there, is they were going through each category. So they went through the high school, went through the middle school, went through to prioritize.
Thank you.
Yep, nope, good question. So, and I'll talk really loudly. So, we talked about expanding some spaces here, and one option was to come out here. The problem is we have all of our utilities running through here. And so it would be very expensive to try to build out this way. So the second option that we looked at then is, if we can't expand out this way, what's some other ways to expand? The weight room is something we talked about expanding, maybe going into the auxiliary room, moving that space. We looked at the cafeteria being a priority. Again, we've talked about this. The kitchen area and the cafeteria are way too small for our needs anymore. And so we want to expand. This is the current concession stand and the serving area. We want to take some of this space to make the serving area bigger. This is a storage. This is some office space. If we capture those spaces into the cafeteria, I think we can create 40 more student seats for lunches. And so then the pink would be a new construction where we move some office space back, extend the loading dock. One of our concerns is with the industrial arts classroom. One of our most popular classes. Mr. Varga's doing great work. Part of the concern is it's right here in the front, which would have been on the end at one point probably, but now we've got all these delivery trucks driving across sidewalks, and the sidewalks are getting destroyed. This area is being torn up. So the thought was, if we create a new industrial arts classroom back here, there's a service road going behind the building. If we do that, then this space is where we could put the new concession area. Also, the school store could go in there. The music department needs more storage. We could put some of that in here, and then we could make this the auxiliary room as well. So this was the general idea. This is not, again, not set in stone. There's some other things coming up that might impact this, but generally these are the areas we want to address. We want to expand the serving lines, expand the cafeteria, remodel the locker rooms. This would be storage for theater. We're talking about the play coming up. One of the problems we have is there's no easy access into that auditorium space, and so we might put something with a garage door so that you can back sets in a lot easier and have some storage here. So these are the main areas we want to address at the high school. This bathroom is not really a bathroom remodel per se, but we know that there's an issue with the drains there after almost 30 years. If we're going to do some work here with remodeling, this is a good time to address those drains. So that's the idea for the high school. And then this is just kind of what it looks like as a site plan. Anywhere you see the red is new construction, so the Industrial Arts Building, expand the loading dock in the back of the cafeteria, and then the CFAC storage. Anywhere you see green is outdoor space. So again, can we fix those sidewalks? Can we do some work to enhance those areas? And this is kind of just, Eduardo wanted to give us a 3D quick rendering of what it might look like to add the industrial arts off the back wing of the high school. There's plenty of room back there to put a new classroom. So at the middle school, there's just a couple of things that we want to address. The bus loop we wanted to consider repaving the bus loop. It's in really bad shape. And then at the soccer field, the bleachers, there was some requests to more seating, more bleacher seating, so we would address that. And then the dotted line would either be fencing or netting, because we lose a lot of soccer balls off into the woods, and there's a little swampy area back there. So we can try to negate that by putting some netting or fencing around the field. And then the benches are fine, but there's no shelter. So like when it gets hot, that sun's just beating on you. So we're talking about putting an enclosure over the benches. At Oakwood, the areas we want to address, there's shingle roofing that is in need of repair, and then these parking spaces. And these parking spaces are a great example of, well, these are small projects. Why is this part of the bond? And I would agree, those are small projects. The thing is, when we talk about expanding the ECC in a minute, we're talking about putting some parking on this side of the building so kindergarten teachers don't have to walk from way over on the other side. Plus, we have kindergarten parents who pick up. Right now, they're parking at Oakwood, walking across to get, so if we put some parking here. And the thinking is, if you're going to bring somebody out to put in a parking lot, you could address those three projects pretty easily. You kind of tie them all together. So, yes, that's not necessarily something that we would have to do through a bond, but since you're doing other bond work, if you tie it in, it's more cost effective that way. Evergreen, there's only a couple of things there, really. Again, the outside, if you've driven past Evergreen, there's two areas. The entry to the bus loop, that needs to be repaved, and then the entry to the one staff parking lot between Evergreen and the middle school is in bad shape. Again, areas that we could address through the general fund if we need to, but if you're doing that other work, tying it into the bond, it's more cost effective. And then the only other work that was requested by teachers was in the upstairs at Evergreen. All the downstairs classrooms have bathrooms in them, but the upstairs classrooms don't. And on both sides, Evergreen East and Evergreen West, the boys' bathrooms has one toilet stall and two urinals, and teachers say the boys are out of the classrooms for a long period of time. And so we would like to replace the urinals with toilets and stalls. It'll speed boys up in the bathroom. It also adds a layer of security because they're enclosed inside a stall. So that's it for Evergreen. So then the Early Childhood Center, which is one of our biggest needs, and that is to add 8 classrooms. They would look that hallway would be very similar. We'd be looking at building right off this exit door over here. Lots of green space. It will fit in there nicely to add those 8 classrooms. If we do that, we need to expand the cafeteria and kitchen area. And so this would be both cafeteria and kitchen expansion. Down here, we would want to expand the media center, and this would be to expand the office. The office is very small. If we're going to add 8 classrooms, we're probably going to need 2 secretaries in that building, and the office right now isn't designed for 2 secretaries. Plus, their conference room is so small that when they have their senior leadership team meetings, they meet over here because theirs is too small for that. So we just want to expand those spaces as well. And this is kind of the overview of what that looks like. So the red, the new hallway, the expansion for the kitchen, the media center, and the admin. There's more need of parking. If you've ever been to an event at the ECC, you know that there's need for more parking. So we want to add parking here, parking there, And if we're gonna have more students, we need to expand the bus loop as well. So bus loop expansion. I think, yeah. Eduardo just wanted to give us a 3D rendering of what it might look like. And so what it might look like then would be, this would be the new hallway, this would be the parking area. Just another angle of it. And then another angle, but this shows a little bit, this would be this side, and this would be the office expansion, and this would be the media center expansion. And again, it kind of looks like in this drawing that you would just go straight out from the media center. That's not really how it will work because of the way the building is designed. This roof would actually be slightly lower when they build out that way, but they'll use the same style and it will blend right in with the current building. Athletics. So again, these are broad concepts. We don't know exactly where things are going to land. There's a couple of recommendations that came in this week that honestly has a lot of merit, and we're going to consider that as well. Has to do with the location of this field house. So we're talking about building an indoor field house. A lot of districts have them. They're multi-purpose. You can use them not only for like practicing football, gymnastics, or not gymnastics, excuse me, marching band can go in there. The community might want to use that. I think we have somebody here involved with Little League Baseball, and they do their tryouts every spring, and sometimes they get rained out and sometimes they don't. Well, you could sign up and use the field house. So there's a lot of ways the community could use that space. This is really fluid right now of what exactly that would look like. We have some examples. Both Jennison's is already open. Spring Lake is in the process of building theirs right now. So we have some things to look at. There might be some ways to put space in there. We talked about maybe adding some multi-use rooms, but again, if you build a mezzanine and you put multi-use spaces on top for, let's say, our cheer team or the dance team or whatever you're going to use that space for up top, by law, you have to have staircases on both sides and an elevator. And so that's going to add a substantial amount of money. So some schools do that, some schools don't, so we'll have to think about how we want to use that space. And so this kind of, and that's why I showed you when I showed you the high school, it's just preliminary. We haven't nailed it down yet because one of the things we're talking about is possibly putting a weight room inside the field house because I'm told that we need 2 weight rooms, but it's busy and maybe this could be used for the community. So if you have 2 weight rooms, then you might not need to expand the weight room inside of the high school, which means we wouldn't have to do anything to the auxiliary room, and the cheer team could stay in there, and then maybe we could just look at making some of the upgrades that the cheer team has shared with us, some things that would help their program, leaving them right in that same space. Or if we decide that creating a space out here for the cheer team makes some more sense, then we would do that. So it's all a little bit fluid in terms of how it will finally work out, but in broad strokes, this field house is a very popular idea. It's got a lot of great uses. People in Jenison are loving the one they opened. I think Spring Lake's really looking forward to theirs. And so this one has a lot of support. There's talk about putting artificial turf on the football field. This would allow us, if we wanted to move soccer here at some point, it would allow our soccer team to practice there before, when they oftentimes play in districts, they have to go play on artificial turf, so they could practice on that, be more prepared for it. And of course, our long-range vision that I talked about is lacrosse. I'd like to add lacrosse. Of course, we'll start as a co-op sport with another school district, but eventually we'd want to do that there as well. We talked about having team rooms, and again, team rooms could end up being here, so at halftime or before the game, team rooms, or the team rooms could end up being part of the field house, so we're still finishing that up. But any work we do here might impact the shot put and discus rings, which probably need an upgrade anyways, so they would go nicely here. 10 tennis courts. Again, we're the only district our size without tennis, and we've had a lot of requests for it time I've been here. New entryway into the stadium. This right now talks about expanding the concession stand. Again, if you've been at our concession stand out by the football stadium, it's small. It's tough to get through, lines are long. But again, so that may or may not happen here. Those we already talked about. And then more parking on this side of the building. One of the things we talked about is if you put the team rooms here, and so this is right behind the stadium, you could put parking in here, and that would be your handicap parking. So that's kind of general. I think there's another slide here. So this, and again, this is just Eduardo thinking about what the entrance might look like. So possibility of putting the team rooms here, this is the current driveway over here. This would be the new entryway into the stadium. So it might look like something like that as you go into the stadium. And again, these are all just preliminary, just give us an idea. This is the turf stadium. And so this is a little bit what I talked about. I think this might be Spring Lakes, if I'm not mistaken. So they have the turf field. It's basically a 50-foot field, but it's a 50-yard field, but it's got a 10-yard end zone on each end, so it's 70 yards. There's track surfaces on the edge, so you can practice sprinting, practice coming out of the blocks, all those kind of things for track. Here's the mezzanine I was referencing. So down below, you can add things like put the second weight room in here. That way, if you're working with the team out here, you want half of them to lift while the linemen go lift while the skilled players do some drills, you could do that. But this is the mezzanine where some schools put things on top of here and some schools don't. If you do, then you need stairs on both ends and an elevator. So that's what the field house might look like. The other thing we're looking at is transportation. Again, all of these suggestions came to us from our transportation department. Things that we're looking at, there needs to be a little bit of repaving done. Some additional parking for our drivers because there's just not enough parking for the drivers. They've asked about a canopy over the buses, which is the yellow dotted area. They've asked about a canopy over the fueling station, so where we have our gas and our propane. This is a drive-through wash bay. We talked about doing some office remodeling. One of the concerns there is our transportation director and our transportation director secretary's chairs are about this far apart. So it's really hard for our transportation director to have confidential conversations with staff or with parents. And so we'd like to maybe expand the office so that they're spread out a little bit more. So those were the suggestions for transportation. So this is just our meeting dates. Kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. Thank you. Questions? So now we can go back to any questions you might have. Again, right now, I think there was a lot of consensus on the broad strokes, the things we want to see, the field house, the expansion at the ECC, the remodeling of the high school, which is our oldest building. Those things were supported by all three groups. It's some of the smaller items that we got to work some consensus on. And then once we get this, broad strokes, you put the bond proposal in, then you start to, once the bond passes, things like that, you start to visit other schools. Some people have already started to visit other schools and see what their facilities look like. Go see what the Jennison Fieldhouse looks like, for example. I know when we built the ECC, but while we were trying to design that, we had just teams of teachers going out to other districts and visiting theirs to see what, how their classrooms were set up, what was the color scheme, all those kind of things. So those parts come later. Right now, for the state, we need to have sort of broad strokes so that they know what our intentions are. And those are the three biggest things: the expansion at the ECC, the remodel of the high school, and our athletic expansions.
And March 11th is when we get the final proposal, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What is the price tag on this currently?
On all of it?
Yeah, like what you showed.
Well, it's hard to say, because I kind of showed, well, what I didn't show you is there's a lot of site things, there's a lot of mechanical things that are on there that might not make the list. If we did everything that was suggested to be done, it's $106 million. We're not gonna be there. On the things where all three groups feel like those are our priorities, we're at about $72 million. So that could be where we stop, or it could be where we, we go up a little bit from there. That's what we have to figure out next Monday.
So to be clear, the three main items were the field house, the high school upgrades, and what was the third?
The ACC expansion.
The ACC, the number one.
Yeah.
On those three items, is it 74 million,
Well, that's,
approximately?
no, because you gotta add in the industrial arts classroom, you gotta add in the tennis courts, the other upgrades. So
All the high school
all the
upgrades
high school
combined
upgrades, yeah.
are in there, okay?
Two things. The stadium bleachers, was there discussion on creating more for football games?
I don't think that was ever suggested as a need. There's been some talk about visiting bleachers, but there wasn't any talk about home bleachers. We just expanded those 3 years ago, I think, 2 years ago.
Okay. And I don't know about everyone else, but I've gotten a lot of emails on our playgrounds, and I saw on, was it Oakwood, some different equipment coming in, potentially. Is that correct?
Well, there's a lot of talk. I mean, again, nothing's been finalized. So for example, there's been, I guess I'm gonna sit down, so I'm not stand anymore, right? I need like a laser pointer or something. Do they do those anymore? So yes, making all the playgrounds accessible was on the table. So that means taking out all the wood chips and putting in poured rubber on all the playgrounds. One of the things in talking with staff here at Oakwood, there's three playgrounds here in this building. One that goes right outside the cafeteria, one that's down the hill in the middle of the grassy area, and one that goes down the hill and is over on the right-hand side. And that's where we put a pathway in, and we put in an accessible swing, and bucket swing is what I was gonna say, and then the poured rubber. So it's been suggested after talking to staff that, for example, in this building, what they feel would be more useful, purposeful, would be to make just the playground at the top rubberized, but put another piece of equipment in, rather than spending $150,000 for each of those playgrounds down below. So those are the kind of nuances that we're working through right now. But we are considering that at every playground. And then probably what we'll do is we're gonna have conversations. Does it make sense to do the entire kindergarten with the rubber, or does it make more sense to do two of the three? I don't know, but we're gonna work through those things. But it is on there. I think the total was like $2.5 million if we did all rubber for all the playgrounds. But it's part of the list of things we're considering.
And would ECC need more playground equipment with the addition and the volume? No? Okay.
They would just have to schedule them separately.
If there's turf in the field house, is it necessary to then also do it outside?
Well, if you put the field house there where it is in the picture, that's the high school football practice field. So if they don't have a practice field anymore, then you're gonna wanna make sure you turf the football field so that if they wanna practice on the football field, they don't tear it up. You don't have to. I don't know how, I don't know if a coach would want to practice on turf indoors and then play their games on grass, because it's a different thing.
And then where the field house is located, does that impact cross-country at all?
It will.
Do we have space for them if the field house goes there?
I'm pretty confident we do, yeah. The tennis courts will impact it as well, but I'm pretty sure there'll be space there as well to keep the trail going.
Was there a rationale for 10 tennis courts? That seems like a lot.
You have to have 9 for competition. So
Okay.
there's 4 singles and 5 doubles.
Okay.
So, yeah, you need, and then usually you have the 10th one, the exhibition, so. And of course, we'd want about 4 of those at least that could be converted, like, would be lined for pickleball as well, because that's pretty popular, and, yeah. Probably seen a lot of pickleball injuries coming in, aren't you? So, again, one of the ideas that came in, I'll just share it because, I guess I can share it, Kevin knows, is maybe move the field house more towards the north end of the football stadium, put the concession stand in front of that building. But if you do that, you're gonna be right on top of your baseball field. So then you'd have to move the baseball field, but we think there's room to move that out by the softball field. Well, now you got a baseball, softball kind of complex out there. So we gotta finish the numbers on that and see how that impacts. I don't know if it'll have a huge, of course it'll cost more because you gotta move the baseball field. But from the utility standpoint, I kind of like that idea. It makes sense. Someone said if you expand the concession stand at where it currently is, that's great, but that area is still so congested, most of the people won't want to go get concessions, but if you have a nice broad area at the north end of the football stadium, it might work out better that way, so that's one of the things that could really impact as well, because then we'd have to move the baseball field.
Can you email that? Did you email that to us?
No,
Could you send that to me?
I don't know if I can email it to you.
Thank you.
As I said, some of it is probably gonna change a little bit next Monday, but.
Okay, you can wait until it changes then.
Yeah, I will give you, so you asked a great question too, Anna, that you're gonna vote on it on March 11th. I'm not gonna wait till March 11th and show it to you on the screen and say, okay, now vote. You'll get the information plenty ahead of time, so.
Are you and the steering committee kind of done with ideas? Is the are you still welcoming ideas from the public? What's that look like?
We can. The problem is we're on a timeline here. We need board to approve on March 11th. And we got our date with Treasury has already been set for months on the 26th. So if we get more ideas, then our architect needs time to realize what those ideas might be. And the estimator, Jamie from Triangle, has to calculate the cost of those things. And it could create, I wouldn't say there's not time for suggestions, but that's what our hope was to get those through the community meetings and things like that.
At the high school, we have quite a few trailers out by the maintenance department building and also by the high school building, the containerizers. Do we have enough storage facilities planned to take care of those and get those off of our property?
I don't know that they will make the final cut for the bond, so that may be something we'll want to do internally, like with our general fund dollars. There's mixed feelings about that. I will tell you that I don't think we have trailers full of useless materials. I think there are a lot of things like we have extra classroom sets of furniture, for example, and we don't want to just get rid of those because if we keep growing and we add classrooms, we don't want to go buy what we got rid of. So, yeah, I think we're looking for ways to store those, in a more useful way, because those trailers are really hard to access, and B, in a more aesthetically pleasing way. Okay. Let's see. So then the others, I have just a quick reminder about the millage vote. Next Tuesday, it's part of the presidential primary. Again, the millage is different from all this conversation we just had about the bond, has nothing to do with the millage on Tuesday. The millage is the non-homestead millage. We are required by law to bring that to the voters at a periodic timetable. Ours is every 4 years. Again, it's not really an increase, it's not a new tax, it's the 18 mills. The way to look at it is this is a tax levy that we are required to have. The bond, we're asking to sell bonds to raise funds. with the non-homestead millage, the state, when they made Proposal A back in 1994, put this non-homestead piece in. And they said, schools, you are required to collect that 18 mills. And so when we calculate how much money we're gonna send you, we're gonna calculate your per pupil foundation allowance, and we're gonna subtract out that 18 mills. So if you don't collect the 18 mills, you're gonna be short that money. So if the millage doesn't pass, we'll be short about $4.9 million. It's just the way the state set it up, and it's how we have to go about collecting those dollars. So it's really important people understand it's not a tax on their personal single home. It's second properties, it's rental properties, it's businesses. And again, it's the 18 mills is what they've always had, and it would stay 18 mills. Now, you'll see on there, it says it can go up to 21 mills. And Scott could maybe do a better job explaining this than I can. I don't know if anybody can explain this. The reason you have that cushion is because of the change in property values, but also the inflation rate is used as part of the state's calculation. And so right now, for example, we have that cushion in there, and the rate is actually 20 mills, but it didn't raise what a business pays. They're paying more millage, but the same dollar amount because of the change in values and the change in inflation. So, again, sorry, business wasn't really my thing, but I think I explained that pretty well. So 18 mills will establish what the businesses will have to pay. If we have to modify, it's called the Headley rollback. Some of you may have heard of the Headley rollback. It's been around again for 30 years. If we have to modify, it might modify the millage rate, but it won't mean the businesses have to pay more. But it's an important vote on Tuesday, and I can't tell you how I'd like you to vote because that's not legal. So I'm just gonna say, please vote. All right. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper.
Yep.
We will move to board comments. I'll start with you, Anna.
No comment tonight.
Kim?
Nope, no comment.
Liz?
I'm good.
Kevin?
I'm done, thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you to all the people working on the bond. I know they're putting in a lot of time. There are a lot of side discussions, and just thanks to everyone, that big group of people that are in that room. Right now, Josh is over at the athletics. They're giving out athletes of the year candidates for each team. So congratulations to all those kids and coaches doing that for the athletic boosters at this time. So we will move on to our first action item. Do I have a motion to approve the first robotics field trip as presented?
Make a motion to approve the first robotics field trip to the World Championship event as presented.
Support.
Motion by Kevin, support from Liz.
So this is the ultimate in confidence because they still have to get through the regionals and the state meet, but they've done quite a great job in previous years. And so in anticipation, we need to get this approved because it's an out-of-state and overnight. There are, as I mentioned, other competitions, 2 other ones, state regionally, that they'll be staying overnight, but those are in-state. So I was able to approve that for them, but I would be very shocked if our team didn't make it to nationals because they're on quite a roll. So hopefully we can support them by approving this trip.
Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the first robotics field trip, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say the same. Motion carries as presented. Do I have a motion to approve the high school trip for the Art Institute of Chicago?
Make a motion to approve the high school field trip to the Art Institute of Chicago as presented.
Support.
Motion by Kevin, second by Liz.
This is an annual trip, and Mrs. Overmeyer does a fantastic job organizing this. Our students love this trip, and so hopefully we can support them again.
Any questions? All in favor of approving the high school trip to the Art Institute of Chicago, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say the same. Motion carries. Do you have a motion to approve the 2023-2024 budget resolution amendment?
Make a motion to approve the general appropriation resolution as to amend the general fund budget for the 2023-2024 as presented.
Support.
Motion by Kevin, second from Anna. Any discussion? Questions?
Yeah, Scott's not here this evening, and just to clarify, you know, we moved this, when we approved the dates for our meetings this year, this is actually the third Monday of the month, and it kind of caught both he and Amy off guard, because we're typically the second Monday of the month. So Scott apologizes, but he had a family thing he had to do this weekend and today. But as he presented to us at our work session, the budget is up from what we originally forecast. Our original budget was total to appropriate is 44,278, 388, and now the total will be 47,469, 046. The biggest difference, and then when you look at the expenditures down below, our fund balance was estimated to be 5,479,678, or about 13%. Now it's going to be 6,654,000, about 800, about 16%. As we mentioned, the biggest reason for this is the grants that have become available that we didn't know would become available. And so that changes. We actually just found out about a grant last week for literacy that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to us. We've got 10 days to fill out the grant application, so we're working hard on it. And but again, that's another large pot of money that we didn't know back in June when we first made the budget that it was going to be available. But any grant that's out there, we're putting our name in for. We don't let any of them go by. So that changes the budget. It could change it again once this grant comes in. So when we do the final budget come June, it might be slightly different again. The good news is that this will help us offset costs, and then we can also look at those items that didn't make the final bond proposal to start knocking some of those off through the general fund. So again, hopefully I represented Scott well.
All right, this is a roll call vote. I'll call the roll. Kanata.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Holstig.
Yes.
Mango. Yes. Ramey.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes as presented. Next on the list, we have approved Neola policy. Do we have a motion to approve the Neola policy updates?
I make a motion to approve the special Neola policy updates to the board policy as presented.
Support.
Motion by Kevin, second by Anna.
Happy to go through these individually again if you'd like me to, but basically these are all changes that need to be made in response to changes in legislation last year. There were changes to what's called the prohibited subjects of bargaining. And so, like the policy talks about those things which are no longer prohibited. That does not mean that they automatically go into the collective bargaining agreements. It just means that now we need to bargain those the next time we open our contract. A couple of these have to do with evaluations, because the evaluation system is changing within the state. It used to be 4 ratings categories, now they're going to 3 ratings categories. All those things were changed in the law, so our board policy needs to change to reflect that.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the roll. Canada,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Holsteg,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Mango, yes. Motion to approve the Neola policy updates carries. Do I have a motion to approve the new vehicles for food service?
I make a motion to approve the purchase of new vehicles at a total cost of $138,985 as presented.
Support?
Motion by Kevin, support from Anna.
Yeah, as you may have noticed in the packet on the budget, there was also an amendment to the food service budget as well. Our ending fund balance right now for food service is over $1 million. That's much higher than the federal government allows us to hold. And so we need to spend that down on food service items. We also have a need to update some of our transportation vehicles that we use to move food from one building to another. So we have both I think it's a Ford 350 and a box truck. They're both 15 to 20 years old, really running out of useful life. And so now's the perfect time for us to replace those, and that money would be coming out of our food service fund, not out of our general fund.
All right. Roll call vote on this one. Canada,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Holsteg,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Mango, yes. Motion to approve the vehicles passes as presented. Next, we have do I have a motion to approve the new sound system for the high school field house?
I make a motion to approve the purchase of a new sound system for the high school gym at a cost of $79,750 as presented.
Support?
Motion by Kevin, second by Anna.
Yeah, so anybody who's been to an athletic event in the high school recently knows the sound system needs an update. We've talked about this before. Speakers in the gym are original, so they're coming up on 30 years old. We've tried updating some of the units that are in the sound system, but it's just time for an update. We had investigated 2 different bids, one from Parkway and one from Town and Country, and doing some research and talking to some references. We started leaning towards Parkway, and then as we started having some internal conversations, I think a couple of things that came very important were, one, we've used Parkway for most of our work, and so this would be consistent for us by staying with them and using their equipment. It gives us some flexibility. For example, we had an issue earlier in the year at the high school, and we had just ordered a replacement part for the middle school that could work at the high school, and so we were able to swap that out. And so sticking with that same equipment makes sense. The other thing is Parkway's always been very responsive to us, so when we have a need, they've been here. At the beginning of this year, if everybody remembers, there was a huge storm and a big power surge, and it blew out a bunch of electrical stuff at the high school, and Parkway came right out and got us set right back up again. So ultimately, we felt like sticking with Parkway, because they've been a good partner for us. We think their equipment's the right way to go.
Anything further? All right. This will be a roll call vote also. Ramey?
Yes.
Mango? Yes. Holsteg?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Kanata?
Yes.
Motion to approve the new high school sound system carries as presented. We have a motion to adjourn at 7:06.
Make a motion to adjourn at 7:06.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say the same. Meeting adjourned at 7:06.
She supports it.
I support it.
Thank you, everyone.
Just gotta make sure I'm on top of it, John. Will you give those to him?
You see that?
Yeah, well, I think that was a pretty good overview.
And we're back with March Sadness, and the team is looking down the barrel of a 4:55 meeting.
Can they turn it around and make this meeting an email?
Jones is taking the ball and running with it. She's asking Grammarly to write the first draft of an email.
What a play. Grammarly is an AI writing partner that helps you make your point.
She's got a clear shot, and it's good.
Bazinga!
It's a slam dunk. The meeting's canceled. They'll go home champions.
Download Grammarly for free.